Start it. What on? No, you turn it off. Huh? Hold on. All right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه محاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. Today inshallah ta'ala we're going to be covering Bab al-Saddaq or Bab al-Saddaq. This is the chapter dealing with the dowry or the mahar or the the money that you pay when you get married. But before we get into the text, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to cover some things really quick. Is anyone here familiar with al-maharul mithl? What does that mean? Al-maharul mithl, meaning she gets a similar dowry. In general, how does a person determine the dowry? In general, how does a person determine the dowry of a particular sister? Yes. Good. So as we take this lesson today, when we say a similar dowry is referring to the dowry that the women in her particular family would get. Her mother, her sisters, her aunts, etc., etc. This is called similar dowry or mahrul mithl. Right. Today, as it relates to the dowry, there are three categories or three ways in which a woman is given her dowry. Does anyone know what they are? Three ways, right? Three ways. I'll mention them and then we'll talk about them a little bit, all right? Because we started kind of late, so I want to make sure I get this out, inshallah. So the first thing is mahr al-musamma. Al-mahru al-musamma. That means prior to them getting married, they've determined how much the dowry is going to be. So for example, a brother may say, all right, I'll give you $5,000, or I give you $1,000, or I give you $100, or I give you $500, right? This is called mahr al-musamma, meaning it was mentioned. A statement was made, huh? A fixed amount. Mahr musamma, a fixed amount that they agreed on. So that's the first way. The second way of identifying the dowry is that it is permissible to be a dowry. For example, you can't tell a woman, I'm going to make your dowry. I found a $10,000 bottle of champagne. I'm going to make this your dowry. For example, right? The champagne itself is impermissible. To give that as dowry is also impermissible. In a case like that, her dowry would return back to a dowry similar, meaning something similar to the women in her family would take. Is that clear? Right. The second part, mahrul mithl. When would a woman receive the general dowry that her family members will get? Under what circumstances? So we're going to mention some of those circumstances. If a man and a woman were to get married and they never spoke about the dowry, then a fallback dowry is the dowry of the woman in her family. Is that clear? If a man or a woman gets married and they do not discuss the dowry, then the dowry returns back to what is normally acceptable in her family. Is that clear? Huh? Yeah. Right. The next thing, if they label something, like for example, the issue with the champagne, and we say, no, that's impermissible, then it falls back on the dowry of the women similar in her family. Is that clear? Right. The next one, let's say, for example, a sister gets married without having a wali. This happens. A sister gets married without having a wali, right? What will her dowry be? Now, she's already married in her mind to this person, even if technically in Islam the marriage does not count because she doesn't have a wali. But the mere fact that the man penetrated her, she is deserving of a dowry. How much will her dowry be? According to the women in her family. Is that clear? The next issue. Let's say, for example, may Allah protect our sisters, Ameen. If a sister is raped, let's say, we're speaking right now, we're in an Islamic court. If a sister is raped in Islam, this is in addition to whatever penalties, the person may go to jail, etc., to the end of it. In addition to that, she's also owed mahar. If a man forces himself upon a woman and rapes her in Islam, she is also deserving of a mahar. So if they catch him, in addition to maybe going to jail, whatever the penalty may be, in addition to that, he also has to pay money. The money that he will have to pay would be the amount of money of the women in her family, Is that clear? I'm sorry. Yeah, he still has to pay. Even the man that raped her. Yes. He don't get a pass. He still got to pay money. He got to pay money. In addition to whatever punishment or criminal charges he's going to have, in addition to that, he owes her money. Under the Sharia. Right now, we're speaking about Islamic law. This whole class is dealing with Islamic law. Under Islamic jurisprudence, if a man rapes a woman, right, he has to pay her money. In addition to whatever penalty, in addition to his sentence in prison, etc., he still owes her money. Is that clear? Right. And the last part is a woman may receive half of her dowry. When would a woman ever receive half of her dowry? Does anyone know? Before the marriage? No, they already got married. When would a woman receive half of her dowry? If she agrees to it? No. Someone else. Somebody help him. Yes. Some property, you said? I said something like a property that she says in the future I want a house or whatever. That will be a part of it. A lot. So pay attention. Oh, yes. You have to do something with the sex. It does. But I'm going to explain it. So a woman is entitled to half of her dowry when? Let's say, for example, a brother marries a sister today, right? He marries a sister today, and he's not alone with her, and he doesn't consummate the marriage. And let's say, for example, they got married today, so I'll be back next week to come get you. So he leaves, goes out of town, does whatever he's going to do, and she's in town. They're still married, but they did not have any khalwa. Khalwa means they were not alone by themselves, nor did he have intercourse with her, okay? At that point in time, while he's going and he says, you know what? I don't think I want to be married to her anymore. In this case, if he divorces her prior to being alone with her or prior to consummating the marriage, she is owed 1/2 of the dowry that he already paid. Is that clear? What does that mean? Let's say they got married Her dowry was $10,000. So on the day of the nikah, he pays her $10,000. He leaves and goes out of town. He's not alone with her. He doesn't spend any time with her. He's not alone with her, and he doesn't consummate. When they say alone, this means they are alone in a private setting. If they're alone in a private setting, whether they were intimate with each other or not, or he had intercourse with her. If he did not do any of these things, and he marries her, then goes out of town, and he gives her the dowry when they got married, and goes out of town, right? And he comes back in the town, or he didn't give her the dowry. We'll get to that about the dowry when it becomes obligatory. As soon as you sign that contract, or as soon as you agree to get married, and once they get married, the dowry is wajib upon him at that point. Until he consummates the marriage or is alone with her, then he only half of it is owed. Once he consummates or is alone with her, then the whole thing is owed. Right now, we're speaking about them being married and they have not consummated, nor have they been alone. And he's out of town. He says to himself, I don't want to be married to her anymore. So he divorces her. At that point in time, half of the dowry, the $5,000, will become obligatory for him to pay her. The $5,000 will become what? Obligatory. Like, how many people heard of this? No one ever heard of this before. Mumtaz. Open up the Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 237. Anybody have the Quran with you? Open up the Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 237. We're going to read through this ayah, and then we're going to go through the tafsir, inshallah ta'ala. So if you look at Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 237, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن طَلَقْتُمُوهُنَّ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن تَمَسُّوهُنَّ. We're going to stop right there. وَقَدْ فَرَضْتُمْ لَهُنَّ فَرِيضَةً. So let's stop right there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you divorce them before you touch them. The ulama explain this touching here means if you're alone with them in private where you can touch her, or you actually did touch her. Touching her here means consummating the marriage. That's one meaning of touching. The other touching means that you're alone in private with her. And no one sees you, even if it's for 2 minutes, for 3 minutes. Okay? Right. Then Allah says, وَقَدَ فَرَضْتُمْ لَهُنَّ فَرِيضَةً. And you paid her dowry, or you guys agreed on what the dowry is. And you guys know what the dowry is. Let's say it's $10,000. Okay? Then Allah says, فَنِصْفُ مَا فَرَضْتُمْ. And Allah says she is entitled to half of what you paid. She's entitled to what? Half. So if you paid her $10,000, she's entitled to what? $5,000. This is not an option. This is what is obligatory. This is our haqq. This is our what? Haqq. But then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say after that? Allah says, إِلَّا أَن يَعْفُونَ أَوْ يَعْفُوَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ عُقْدَةُ النِّكَاحِ. Allah says, or if she pardons him or he pardons her. What does that mean? What does a pardoning here mean? You waive it. But here, when you mention pardon and waiving, what this means is he already paid the money to the sister, right? He lets her know, you know what? You're divorced. Meanwhile, she got the money. She could either she has to at least give him half back. Or if he hadn't paid, he owes her at least half. Does that make sense? So if it's 10 grand they agreed on, and he gave her the 10,000 from the beginning, she owes him how much? 5,000. So she has to give the 5,000. Or she can give the whole 10 back. Vice versa. If he gives her the 10,000 and he calls like, you know what, this is not going to work out, he could do one of two things. He could either accept the 5,000 back or tell her to keep it, don't worry about it. Keep it, don't worry about it. How many people here will tell her to keep her, don't worry about it? Nobody. But listen, Listen, I don't see no hands going up. Forget that, cuz. How many people here will tell her to keep it, don't worry about it? Or you the only one? Huh? Oh. اسمعوا بس الناس ما يتكلمون عربية هنا يا شيخ. أنا أعرف القرآن. كيف يعني؟ أنا أعرف القرآن. طيب. قل لي كلمة القرآن أنا نشرحها. يا شيخ في درس بعدين. So if we explain this here, how many people would, as men, how many men would say, go ahead, you can keep the money? You would say that. Who else? Two. Would you? No. That's too heavy of a ticket. All right, what if it was $1,000 and she owe you 500? How many people would go ahead, keep the 1,000? I still don't see no more hands. I see a couple more. All right. What does Islam say about that? All right. So if you look through the tafsir, Allah says, وَأَن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Allah says, if you pardon, then this is closer to having taqwa. Question, does that mean that if you as a man take your right back, that does that mean you don't have no taqwa? That it doesn't mean that you don't have no taqwa. So, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but if you pardon, then this is better for taqwa. Right. Let me finish. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَنْسُوا فَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ وَلَا تَنْسُونَ الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. The last part here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not forget the favors that He has bestowed upon you, that whatever you do, Allah knows and Allah sees. Now, pay attention to this. When you look at the tafsir, many of the ulama, they say that in this particular ayah, it says, why does it look like Allah, when Allah says pardon, if you look at the Arabic, it's like Allah's talking to the men. Why? They say tagliban, meaning, and more than likely, the men are the ones that's going to be in a position to pardon. Meaning, you already gave her the money. She owes you. You could be like, no, you know what? Go ahead, keep the whole thing. All right. Because most likely, this is going to be the position of the men in most cases, right? So then they say, if he takes his money back, the $5,000, right? He takes it back, or the $500, he takes it back. And it's his haq to take the half of the money back. Is it possible that she's going to be bitter? Is it a possibility that the sister will be bitter? Right. If you tell her to keep it, is it a possibility that it may soften her heart? So in this ayah, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. You can get your haq back, but it's better to have her heart soft as well. And if you do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of what you do. There's a reward for that. Right? Like Imam As-Sa'di, Shaykh Abdul Rahman As-Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says there's two ways that people give. Right? A person can give what is wajib. For example, there's wajib for her to give back that 5,000. That's wajib. Or it's wajib for him to take. Or if he didn't, let's say, for example, he didn't pay the dowry yet, but he married her, signed a contract, whatever, and he divorced her. He still owes her what? Half. The half that he gives her is wajib for him to do it. So for him to do that which is wajib, he gets reward for it, right? But then he said there's another type of giving, which is from ihsan, which is a higher level of doing what is wajib. A higher level of doing what is wajib is that you owe her the 5,000, or you can just give her the whole thing. Giving her the whole thing, that may bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the aspect of having taqwa. Does that make sense? Right? And it may also soften her heart. She may be bitter. Most women are going to be upset, especially if she was excited, I got married, and then you call on the phone like, no, I changed my mind, but you can keep the 10,000. I apologize. She's going to be mad, but it may what? It may soften the blow. Remember, this is your sister in Islam, right? This is your sister or your brother in Islam, so it may soften the blow. Is that clear? Any questions? Yes.
Maybe I've been married for like 15 years. Why do you keep saying 10,000?
I just said 10,000. I just gave a high number. Shake, $1,000, $500, $100. I just said the reason why I said 10,000 because I knew some of y'all wouldn't give it back. That was the point of me mentioning it. Yes.
That's meritorious. Like when you give somebody something, they poor and they had trouble paying it back, and you just say,
You let them go.
good.
Let it go. Yes. The reality of it, brothers and sisters, we only got a limited time in this dunya. So if you have an opportunity, you might not really want to let that money slide. But if you think like, dang, if I let this slide, this might really raise my rank in the next life because I'm really only doing this for the sake of Allah. Like I'm really mad that I got to do this, but I know that Allah might be pleased with me. So let me just go ahead and give her that, put a smile on her face, even though she's upset, let her smile for a little bit. And then her mind, I got this bull. But in his mind, I did it for the sake of Allah. So it's a win all across the board. Make sense? In her mind, she might be saying, man, I got this dude. In his mind, he said, I did it for the sake of Allah. So I'm going to win anyway, inshallah. Make sense? Right. Now we're going to open up the book. This was everything before we got to the chapter. Any questions? Play it. All right. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue covering the dowry, right? And basically, we spoke about everything, but we're going to read about it in a little more detail, inshallah ta'ala. Bab al-Sadaq. So the chapter of dowry or the mahar. Yusannu takhfifuhu. So it's sunnah to make it light. What is a dowry? A dowry is you're paying money to be intimate with your wife. That's exactly what that means. And just being raw, right? You can't be intimate with a woman unless you pay money. This is Islamically, legislatively, and Islamic jurisprudence. Does that make sense? Right. So it's sunnah takhfifuhu, to make it light. It's the sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ to make it easy. Fi hadith, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and some of the ulama say it's da'if, but it's a hadith that many of the ulama use. أعظم النساء بركة أيسرهن مؤونة. This hadith is the woman that has the most blessed woman is the woman that makes it easy on the man, right? Some of them say this chain of narration is da'if, is weak. It's a hadith that many people use. But there's also sunnah to tasmiyatuhu fil aqd. The sunnah is also to mention what the dowry is in the contract. The contract can be verbally or written, right? They say, okay, we're going to get married. I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars. How much do you want? I want $500. All right, cool. $500. That's what the dowry is, right? It's sunnah to mention that when you get married. Like, during the time of the Prophet, ﷺ, they would say that the dowry was between 400 and 500 dirham. 400 and 500 dirham, if you look it up, you got to look back to what was that during that time, etc. If you use that figure today, it will be equivalent to about 212 grams of gold, which is a lot of money now. But as we know, the price of gold and silver, it fluctuates. The price of gold and silver, it fluctuates, right? So it's never the same. Right. And what can actually be the dowry? كل ما صح ثمنا أو أجرة صح مهرا وإن قل. Anything that's permissible to be used as dowry can be dowry. So, for example, if you say to a woman, I'll marry you, but I'll give you a car, or I'll give you a house. That's clear, right? Right. You can say, I'll give you anything that has a value to it. Anything that has a value, something of value, or that someone would actually pay rent for, like as a space or a property or something like that. Even if it's a small amount, even if it is a small amount. وَإِنْ أَصْدَقَهَا تَعْلِيمُ الْقُرْآنِ لَمْ يَصِحْ. Now, here, the scholars of Islam, they differ, right? The question is, so let's understand this. According to the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, the school of fiqh of Imam Ahmad, it's not permissible to take money for teaching the Quran. It's not permissible to take money in teaching the Quran. However, in this method, in this, they say, وَفِيهِ قَوْلَانِ, يعني it's two statements, فِيهِ قَوْلَانِ, or قَوْلَانِ. It's two statements or two positions in the method of Imam Ahmad. The first one is that you cannot, and another one is that you can. So there's a difference of opinion inside of his own school of thought. However, the author of this particular book chose the position that you cannot. So therefore, if a man wants to get married to a sister, he cannot use the Quran or teaching the Quran as dowry. He cannot use teaching the Quran as dowry in a marriage. طيب. For example, if a man says he'll marry the sister, I'll just teach her a couple juz of the Quran. According to the school of Imam Ahmed, that's not permissible. That's the position that is relied upon. However, there's also another position that says that you can. And they mention the ones that say that you can, they mention the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. Some of them say it's authentic, the statement, some say it's not. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam zawwaja rajulan ala surata min al-Quran. That the Prophet ﷺ, he married a man because he knew a surah in the Quran, right? What do the ulama say about this hadith? They say that this hadith is khas bihadha rajul, meaning this hadith or this situation is only specific to that man. No one else has that opportunity to marry just for reciting the Quran. Is that clear? That's a position. And another position, you can use the Quran to teach a sister the Quran as marriage. However, in this day and time, honestly, you have daughters, I wouldn't recommend. I'm not marrying my daughter to nobody to teach her the Quran. I'm sorry. I got too many daughters. I'm not doing that. You brothers do what you want to do. I'm talking about me. I'm just slid my own personal opinion in. I'm not doing it. Okay. The next one. When astaqaha ta'lim al-Quran. And in this case, many of the ulama say that's not even something that you should do anyway. Right?
That man was poor. If I remember the hadith right. That man
Whatever, that's what I'm saying. Whatever the case may be, is teaching the Quran. Some of the ulama of the Salaf, they said that was only specific for that man, not for anyone else. That's the argument. طيب. بل فقه وأدب وشعر مباح معلوم. And then they say if a sister wants to marry a brother, and she say I'll marry him, but he has to teach me fiqh, like what we're studying now, then it's permissible for that. Or he wants to teach her adab, like different Islamic etiquettes and manners, then he could do that. Or anything, or poetry. They say, or halal poetry or something like that. Then it's permissible for her to take that as her dowry. Like the next thing, if a sister, she says, well, he says to her, what do you want for your dowry? And he has multiple wives, right? So she says, well, I want for my dowry for you to divorce your first wife. I want for my dowry for you to divorce your first wife. Is that permissible? La, it's not permissible. It's not permissible. And it says, وَلَمْ يَصِحْ وَلَهَا مَحْرُمْ مِثْلُهَا. So if a woman makes that a condition for her dowry, in that case, her dowry now defaults to the women in her family. She can't say what else she wants. Is that clear? So for example, a sister says to you, y'all married, but you got to divorce your first wife. As soon as she says that, it's impermissible. Now her dowry now defaults to what the women in her family gets. She doesn't get to label what she wants for her dowry anymore. Is that, yes? I'm sorry? Yeah, she lost that. Yes. Yes, it's gone. Right. And the next thing the author says, Meta batala musamma wajaba mahru mithl. Whenever the whenever whatever she says for her dowry is incorrect, then it automatically defaults to the dowry of the women in her family. Is that clear? Yes. That's not a dowry. And that's not. You can't. There's no value in that. All right? There's no value in that. She could put that in her contract, but she can't put that for her dowry. It's two different. So, for example, in a marital contract, she may say to you, brother, I'll marry you, but you can't take on another wife. If you agree to that, then that's what you agree. If you agree to that and you decide to take on another wife, then she has a right for an annulment of the marriage without your approval. So some brothers, this is important. Some brothers may, they might say, yeah, I won't take another wife. You agree to that. You married a sister. And then after, you've been married to her for some time, you're like, I'm going to just take on another wife. At that point in time, she has the option to leave the marriage without your permission or approval. She doesn't have to get a khula, nothing. All she has to do, if she's in an Islamic country, go to a court, confirm that, yes, they agreed on that, and they both agreed on that, that's what was said, then khalas, she can leave the marriage.
It can be done in this country too, right?
It can be if they agree to it and you go to an Islamic place and they understand the contract that you guys had, yes. But it doesn't mean that she just gets up and walks out like, oh, I'm done out this marriage and walks away. No, you have to sit in front of people and go over the issue and make sure and study it properly. Otherwise, you'll be pressing each other, or somebody will be oppressed. Yeah, definitely. You definitely need an arbitrator. Yes. No, that's the benefit of her getting an annulment. In this case, she does not have to pay back the dowry. In that case, she does not have to pay back the dowry. The next one, we're going to mention some issues that are, they may not necessarily affect us, but these are some of the issues that the fuqaha or the Islamic jurists, they mention. It says, وَإِنْ أَصْدَقَهَا أَوْفًا إِنْ كَانَ أَبُوهَا حَيًّا وَأَوْفَيْنِ إِنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا وَجَبَ مَهْرُ مِثْلٍ. Let's say, for example, a man says, I'll give you $1,000 if your dad's living, or $2,000 if he's dead. It's weird. It doesn't make sense to us. But if she mentions something like that, then the dowry goes back to whatever the women in her family made, whatever they got. Right. The next one. وَإِذَا أَجَلَّ الصَّدَاقِ أَوْ بَعْدَهُ صَحْ. So let's say, for example, the man and the woman, they agree to get married. You want to stick to the 10 grand, you want to use a different number. The only reason why I said 10,000, I don't know, man. It depends. I don't know. What's a reasonable number? 4,000? All right, 4,000, right? Sheikh said 4,000. So it says, وَإِذَا أَجَلَّ الصَّدَاقَ أَوْ بَعْضَهُ صَحَّ. If they delay the dowry or some of it, then it is correct. So let's say, for example, a man agrees to marry his sister. They agree. He says, I'm going to give you 4,000, right? He gives her 2,000 right now. I'll give you the other 2 grand over the next 2 years. Make sense? Is that permissible? Yes or no? Yes, it's permissible. He can give her, yeah. She got to agree to it for sure, right? And that's another thing, sisters. I don't know if I want to say this yet because that's for tomorrow's class, but I'll mention it briefly now. If a sister has doubts about whether this man's going to pay her dowry, she has an option in the beginning. The option in the beginning of the marriage is, he like, oh man, hold up. The option is, she does not have to go to him at all, be intimate with him, be with him until he pays that money. That is an option that sisters have. Some sisters are, oh, let me go back. No. But once you already went to him and did all, then you lose that option. This is an option that you have in the very beginning. This is an option that a sister has in the very beginning. We'll talk about that further in the next class, inshallah ta'ala. طيب. فإن عين أجلا وإلا فمحله فرقة. So let's say, for example, if he says, I'll give you the other 2,000 over the next 2 years, and they get a divorce, when does it become obligatory? Right then and there. So like once he divorced her and she's in idda, once she's out of idda, that money becomes obligatory. It's already obligatory, but she needs that money. So that means how many brothers here got divorced from women? They divorced them, you're divorced, but they never paid the dowry. You still owe that money. Brothers, you still owe that money. If you have a sister out there that you were married to and you divorced her, she didn't ask for a khula, but you divorced her and you did not pay her dowry, this is going to be on your neck on Yawm al-Qiyamah. This is going to be attached to your neck on the Day of Judgment. Give that sister her money. Yes. I'm sorry? If who makes the statement of delaying the dowry? At a later date. If they agree on it, that's fine. Then that mumtaz. So the brother says, what if they agree on the dowry? He owes her $4,000. He gives her half, and then he passes away. What happened to the rest of the money? The rest of that money comes from warathatihi. That means the people that inherit from him, before they get their cut of their money, that money goes to the wife. That money is owed to the wife. Before they start breaking up his money and passing it around, that money goes to the wife. She gets hers first. Is that clear? Right. Mumtaz, good question. If a man, let's say for example, we're going to mention some examples now. What's permissible, what's impermissible. If a man gives a sister a car, but he stole the car, she knows that he stole the car, right? In this case, if she knows that he stole the car, and they have, and this is we're saying we're going to an Islamic court, so it's been proven he stole somebody's car. You know, I signed the title, gave it to her, but it was really somebody else's car, right? She knows it. She took it. The person complained. Now he gets his car back. What's her dowry now? Back to the family. The dowry similar to what the family gets. Is that clear? Right. The next thing, let's say, for example, he gives his wife for dowry, he gives her a car. We're going to stick with a car. He gives her a car, but the engine messed up. She got the car thinking that the car drive. When he give her the car, the engine messed up. She can't drive the car. So now the car is no benefit to her. What does she do? What's her option now? She has two choices. Right? Her first choice, خُيِّرَتْ بَيْنَ عَرْشِهِ. She has an option of taking whatever it costs to get their car fixed. He has to pay that money. So let's say, for example, he spent let's say the car costs $10,000. I'm back on 10,000, right? The car costs $10,000. It costs, I don't know, $1,500 to get the engine fixed, right? So now he owes her $1,500 to get the engine fixed. Or she can say, you know what? I don't even want the car. I just want the value of the car. So now he has to pay her the money. That's her option. Is that clear? Yeah, I mean, whatever the value of it is, that's what he got to pay. It's not double because he's taking it back. Maybe he could sell it, get the money together, and give her the. Yeah, if she says fix the engine, you got to fix the engine. But she has a choice though. She can say, I want the car, so get the engine fixed. Or you say, you know what? I don't want none of that. Just give me the bread. If you were standing in front of an Islamic court, an Islamic judge, he will rule in her favor. طيب. And this the next thing here is important because it shows the power of the father, right? So it says, وَإِن تَزَوَّجَ عَلَى عَوْفٍ لَهَا وَعَوْفٍ لِأَبِيهَا صَحَّتْ التَّسْمِيَةِ. So let's say, for example, if a man says, I want to marry you, but I'm going to give you $1,000 and I'm going to give your dad $1,000, right? Is this correct? Yes or no? Who said no? Can this be correct? If a man says, I'm going to give you $1,000 for you and $1,000 for your dad for your dowry. Can that go in Islam? Huh? Yeah, if she accepts it, then yeah. All right. Now let's say, for example, فَلَوْ طَلَّقَهَا قَبْلَ الدُّخُولِ وَبَعْدَ قَبْضِ رَجَعَ بِأَوْفٍ. Let's say he divorces her now. Right? They do the contract, but he does not consummate the marriage. She owes him how much? 1,000. Right. She gives him her 1,000, but the father still got his 1,000. Does she ask him, Dad, we gotta split that? Huh? I'm asking. Do she go to her dad? Let's think. I need y'all to understand what's going on here. The man marries his sister and says, I'm gonna give you 1,000 for you and 1,000 for your dad. So altogether the dowry is how much? $2,000, right? He marries her, he doesn't consummate the marriage and he's not alone with her. He comes back and he says, you know what? I don't want to be married to you no more. Give me back my 1,000. He don't care who it comes from. For him, I need my $1,000. He gets his $1,000 back from the woman. Now, in her mind, well, the other 1,000, should it go to her or should it stay with her father? Huh? Back to the husband? He already took the 1,000, still 1,000 left. He gave her 1,000, he gave the dad 1,000. Right, yes. So she gives him the 1,000 back. Now she has nothing, but the dad has $1,000. Does that make sense? Or did I lose anybody? So you're saying the dad should give her, should break her? No. Because he married her. So remember, guys, in the very beginning, we mentioned what? If a man marries a woman and he pays the dowry and he does not consummate and he's not alone with her and he divorces her, then she's entitled to at least what? Half of the dowry, right? This is what Allah mentions. So now that she has half, he divorces her. He takes back what? $1,000. Does she have a right to ask for her father for some of that money? Yes or no? La, she does not. Fi hadith, there's a hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, Anta wa maluka li abik. You and your wealth belong to your father. You and your wealth belong to your father. So she has no right to ask her dad for any of that money. The dad walks off with the 1,000 and that's how I go. That's the status. Listen, that's the status that Islam gives the father in Islam. Islam respects fathers. The religion of Islam gives the father the utmost respect. Why? Who's going to love the daughter more than the father? But rather, is there a man alive that's going to love the daughter more than the father? No. And the one that could possibly love her that much is not born yet, and it may be her son. It may be her son. And the son is still not going to be equal to the father. Because the father has to protect, raise, etc. The son, he takes from the parents. Sons take. Father's been given since day one and going to give all the way up until his death. Does that make sense? Fine. All right. Fine. This is the last part we're going to cover, inshallah. It says, قَبْضَ الْمَرْأَ الصَّدَاقِ. When a woman actually takes possession of the dowry. تَمْلِيكُ الْمَرْأَةُ صَدَاقَهَا بِالْعَقْدِ. So the woman takes the dowry money as soon as you guys do the contract. As soon as the qabul, the ijab and qabul, the acceptance, the offer and acceptance is done, the dowry at that point becomes wajib, obligatory. Okay. ولها نماء المعين قبل قبض وضده. All right. Now pay attention. This is important. If a man marries a woman and he says, you know what, we're gonna use 10,000. I like 10,000. 10,000 makes you pay attention. That's what I'm saying. So the dowry was $10,000, right? He says he gives her the 10,000. He says instead of him giving her 10,000, he puts it in. He puts the money in a it's just one of the some shares, some stocks, halal stocks, right? He invests her 10 grand, put it in stocks. So yeah, your dowry in stocks right here. Boom. Okay. Pay attention. And it's specific. Like, yeah, your 10,000 is in Tesla stock, for example, in Tesla, or in Bitcoin, something that's going to make her some money, for example, right? Now, she doesn't take the money. She does not take the money. The money is sitting there and he still has possession of it. If the money is lost, mind you, this is her dowry, but he put the dowry in a stock. So she's supposed to take possession of it, right? But she doesn't take possession of it. She says, وَإِن تَلِفَ فَمِن دَمَانِهَا. If the money, if it loses money, who's responsible for that loss? Him or her? The man or the woman? Who's responsible for that loss and that money?
If she agreed to that, it's all right.
Mumtaz. If she agrees to it and is able to take possession of it, then she's responsible for that loss. If she agrees to it, but he says, no, I'm not going to give it to you yet. I'm going to give it to you in another 6 months. And it takes an L, it loses money. Who's responsible for that? He is. The husband is. He's responsible for the lost money when the money took a dip. He's responsible. Does that make sense? Why is he responsible? Because he didn't give her access to it. He kept it. And she wanted it, but he kept it. Is that clear? If he gave it to her, then she's responsible because she can move it out. She can do whatever she wants with it. Make sense? Does that make sense? Right. All right. وَلَهَا التَّصَرُّفُ فِيهِ وَعَلَيْهَا زَكَاتُهَا. So for this woman, if it's her money, she can spend what she wants with her money, and she's also responsible for paying zakat on her money, not him. And we'll talk about zakat later. That'll be a whole nother conversation. طيب. إن طلق قبل الدخول أو خلوة فله نصف حكما دون نمائه. All right. So let's say, for example, he gives her the money and he does not consummate the marriage and he's not alone with her. And the money started, it doubled. It became double. He put it 10,000, now it's 20,000. He says, you know what? I don't want to be married to you no more. How much does he owe her? Is it half of the growth or half of the origin?
Being that he didn't give her possession of it, he would just give her half of the 10,000.
All right, I'll give you an example. Let me give you another example. Another example that make it a little more clear, right? He gives her $10,000 for a dowry. She takes $5,000 and invests in something else. This is before he consummates and before he is alone with her. She puts the money in something else, and that money turned into, instead of being 10,000, now it's 20, 25. But the original amount of money was how much? 10. Right? So now he divorces her. He's entitled to half. Is it half of the 10 or half of the growth? Is it half of the 10 or half of the growth? Who said half of the growth? You say half of the growth. What do you say? What do you say, Sheikh? Say no. He's entitled to half of the 10, which is 5, because that was the original dowry that he paid was 10,000. The growth she took, that was what she did with her half. Make sense? It's her business. Right. The next one. Let's say, for example, they use in the examples that the fuqaha use, they use like sheep and cattle. We don't deal with sheep and cattle. So it got to be relevant to how our brains process, right? So let's say the next one is muttasil. So it's connected, right? This one here, the next one, we're going to talk about a house. He gives her a house. He pays $10,000 for the house. He gives her a house. He doesn't consummate. He's not alone with her. He leaves the country, so I'll be back next month. He comes back next month. The house is now worth what? 50,000. Right? 50,000. Right? What is he entitled to? Half of what he paid. The rest is her. All right? But the last part we're going to cover here is the last part for the day is when ikhtalafa az-zawjani aw warathatuhuma fi qadr as-sadaqi. All right, so the first thing, we have a husband and a wife. Maybe they're in court. They're in Islamic court. They're different, right? The first thing she said, my dowry was supposed to be 10,000. He said, no, it was only 7. So now they're coming in front of a judge complaining. My dowry was 10,000. He says, no, it was only supposed to be 7. Whose statement does the judge take in this case? The statement goes to the husband in this case, because the origin is that there is no money that he has to pay because he's not married to her, right? So once he gets married, then he has to pay. If he agrees, that was the money. So the statement goes to the husband, ma'a yaminihi, meaning he swears to Allah, swear by Allah in front of the judge that that's what it was. So that means if he's lying, he has to wear that in front of Allah. Okay? That's the first case. Ainuhu. Let's say, for example, when he marries a woman, he says, listen, I got 5 houses. You can have the blue house. So they go in front of the judge. She's like, no, he gave me the red house. He says, no, I gave her the blue house. The statement goes to who? It goes to the man again with yamini. He swears by Allah that that's what he did. Even if the wali, even if the dispute is between. So when I say the man and the woman, I'm saying the man, the woman, and her wali. He's also included in that. Okay. Oh, fima istaqarra bihi. Let's say, for example, she says he gives her $10,000, right? He says she owes me 5,000. She say no, he consummated. He says no, I didn't. The statement goes to who? The man again, with him swearing by Allah that what he's saying is true. Fine. The next one. If he says, I gave her dowry, and she says, no, he didn't. The statement goes to who? The woman. Pay attention. If a man marries a woman, and that's his wife now. All right, everybody knows that's his wife, etc. They consummated the marriage, right? She says, he never gave me my dowry. He says, I did give her dowry. The statement goes to who? The woman with my yamini, meaning she swears by Allah that she got the dowry. And with that, we're going to stop for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. We'll pick up tomorrow. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we have class tomorrow, inshallah.